are a lot of people who are gonna hate me for this, but it needs to be said. Hello fellow fic writers, kudos for clicking on this video. My name is Cora and I'm here to help you write and post your dream fanfiction. Chapter lengths are one of the most subjective variables in fanfiction, but I have opinions and I'm about to make them your problem. Just so you know, this advice is specific to long fics with an overarching plot, not one-shot collections or multi-chapter short fics. But even if we are focusing on long fics, that doesn't mean my word should be taken as gospel. And that's why it's time for the Sunday Bar Notice. Here I present you with a bowl of ice cream. The flavor? Your fanfic. Here is a bar full of toppings. These toppings are a metaphor for the advice I offer. You don't need all the toppings to create a sundae you love, and the same is true for my advice and your fanfiction. Your preferences and mine are going to be different. That being said, here are my thoughts on chapter length. Chapter 1. Why 10k word chapters or more are too long. There are a lot of people who are gonna hate me for this, but it needs to be said. To me, 5-figure chapters are a sign of poor pacing. If you have no natural rest point after 10k words, chances are that a good chunk of those words are filler and need to be cut. Excessive description, tangents, pointless filler, or a strange aversion to short time skips and scene breaks, or just summarizing that which isn't that important to the plot anyway. In the fics I've read with consistently long chapters, these were almost always the issues. It's a slog to get through each one. 10k chapters are also impractical for a few reasons. For one, many people, such as myself, cannot read them in a single sitting, especially if they have any of the above-mentioned problems. Even if they don't, it's still just intimidating to get through 10k chapter after 10k chapter in a work, even if I really love that work. This can disrupt the author's intended experience for the reader. It also makes it harder to read on mobile and find where you left off, because the browser would either struggle to load the chapter or refresh the window when you return to the tab, thus causing the reader to lose their spot. The most common justification I see for 5-figure chapters is that the writer wants to include a full arc in a chapter, which, no, that's a terrible reason. Most arcs are supposed to take place over multiple chapters. My arcs are often 20k words in length on average, and you don't see me releasing 20k chapters, do you? Multi-chapter arcs also guarantee a hook for the next chapter. If you want the reader to keep coming back, you need to keep some things unresolved. And I don't just mean broad story stuff. I mean things that the reader can tell will be resolved in the short term. The only justification for a 10k word or more chapter, in my opinion, is if you have a pinnacle scene in your story that has such a natural and immersive flow that to disrupt it will be to the story's detriment. Those chapters never read like they're 10k or over because the flow and pacing is masterfully done. Chapter 2. Why 1,000 word chapters are too short. Again, this generally indicates to potential readers that you don't understand pacing. A chapter must always progress the story in some way, and if your chapters are this short, nothing significant is happening in them. Hey, I just wanted to clear up a potential misconception in this section. When I say a chapter must move the plot forward in some way, I don't mean that every chapter must have some big development on the central external conflict. A chapter can progress subplots, address the character's emotions, take the time to world build something that will be plot relevant later, or foreshadow what's to come. I just want to say that in no way am I telling you that cooldown chapters are bad. Good pacing isn't just about the peaks, but the valleys as well. Even if each chapter does move the plot, that indicates severe underwriting. Lacking description, telling rather than showing, missing context, and more. Many veteran fanfic readers have come to see short chapter length as a sign that the author is very new to the craft, and thus doesn't have the knowledge of good pacing and immersive writing that comes from practice. Please know that I don't say this to discourage new writers. Just because I've moved on from fanfic written by apparent new authors doesn't mean it has no value. Another issue with 3-figure word count chapters is that even if you do describe everything as much as needed, a single arc will get stretched out over months or even years, depending on how fast you update. This isn't a problem for a binge reader, but it is a problem for anyone reading a fic as it updates. Imagine waiting 6 months to finish reading a battle between the protagonist and the villain. I can see chapters this short being justified for slice of life stories or ones where the author chooses to post scene by scene. It can make a low stakes long fic quite binge worthy as readers keep saying, just one more chapter. But even then, a lot of scenes are or should be more than 1,000 words. Chapter 3, The Sweet Spot. So, a few weeks ago, I created a poll on Tumblr asking my followers what the ideal chapter length was for them, and the most popular option was 2,000 to 4,000 words at 41%. The second most popular option was 4,000 to 6,000 words at 25%, and that's also what I voted for. The third most popular at 14% was 10k word chapters, going to show that they have their fans. In the notes, someone did bring up a study that the average person can read 3,000 to 4,000 words in a single sitting, but they didn't have the source on hand, so take it with a grain of salt. The thing is, different stories may need different chapter lengths. The average chapter length of my completed urban fantasy AU was 4,200 words, while the average for my high fantasy work in progress is currently 4,700 words. This is because the latter needs more page time for world building and exploring the characters' inner psyche. Chapter 4. How long should your chapters be? Like I said, the answer is going to vary story to story, but here are some tips to keep in mind. All your chapters should be as short as possible without sacrificing quality, context, or good pacing. Do not overtrim your description or scrap your carefully crafted dialogue for something more direct. Do not skimp on your slow character development moments either. The lower the stakes in your story, the shorter your chapters can be. This is because it's best served as sweet little bites of satisfaction. Your readers will know that you deliver on the good stuff quickly and efficiently, and they'll always come back for more. The higher the stakes in your story, the longer your chapters might need to be. This is because you need more time to flesh out the characters and conflict they face, so the reader is more invested. Modern AUs or fics that take place within a familiar setting will also likely need shorter chapters, while fics that take place in an unfamiliar setting will require more page time for world building. While these points will help you determine what chapter length you should aim for, occasionally a chapter is just going to end up shorter or longer than expected, even if you do everything right. Your chapter won't be considered unreadable if it skews long or short every now and then. Epilogue. Why no one has the right answers. As I said at the beginning of this video, this is a very arbitrary question with arbitrary answers. Sometimes a fic is best told with really long or really short chapters. It all depends on how well you understand pacing. The last thing I want is for any writers, especially new writers, to take my opinions as gospel. If you're going to write a 10k word chapter or longer, I would at least hope you carefully considered the drawbacks first. So, what do you think of my opinions? Do you agree? Do you want to write a 40k one-shot just to spite me? As long as it gets the words flying from your fingertips, I'm happy. And that's the end of the video. Kudos for watching, kudos for liking, and extra kudos if you've subscribed and hit the bell for more dreamy fanfiction tips. I will see you in my next video, but in the meantime, happy fic writing!